All right, here it is, Kit-Siderations, the dump pouch video.
The old gunfighter stood on the porch and stared into the sun.
What I'm going to go over today is all of my thoughts on dump pouches. I consistently get the questions because I've become somewhat infamous on Instagram about being anti-dump pouch, right? So I'm going to cover everything about them, including how to properly use them in case you really have your heart set on it. But hopefully we get some critical thought going on here and you make the realization that you really don't need it, because you really don't. All right. So without further ado, let's kick this thing off. Kind of starting off, a little bit of history and background. So I used to run dump pouches for probably about 10 years. I had a dump pouch on my gear. It started off in 2003, sitting in Kuwait, getting ready to cross the border into Iraq. And some of us had the idea of taking the larger side sustainment pouches off of our packs and somehow affixing them to the front of our gear so that as we did mag changes, we could just dump that mag into this pouch because it would be faster, in our initial impressions, than trying to reinsert them into our mag pouches on our gear, because they had these weird flaps that actually had like 3 sides to them, so they could be difficult to index magazines back into them. And again, like, you got cargo pockets, but the cargo pockets are also not the most secure thing in the world, especially with the older utility uniforms that didn't have any elastic in the top of the cargo pocket. But we're like, no, you're not gonna be able to get in a prone with this extra sack on front of you that's gonna be, starting to fill with empty mags and things like that. And we didn't really have space to put the stuff in our rucks that was already contained in these large side pouches. So we nixed the idea, like, nah, not gonna work out. But we get back from that deployment and moving on, and I started seeing this thing marketed as dump pouch. And I'm like, oh, cool. Other people had the same idea. Somebody took it to market. All right, let me check it out. And so I picked up a few. The ones I initially picked up had multi-purpose, so they would fit a 200-round saw drum, about 6 magazines or so, and it had a lip kind of similar to this one, so I could shove magazines in there and use it as a dump pouch. And I continued to run dump pouches on my kit. When I made it to Force Recon, it was standard. It was part of the SOP that you had a dump pouch on your gun belt. Now, I continued to run a dump pouch on my gun belt. I went through a lot of different types of pouches. I went through, pouches that had these kind of lips, more enclosed, box style. I went through pouches like this one, because at first I started off with something like this with the lips. I was like, it's kind of a pain to get stuff in there quickly. So I went with something that was more open, so it'd be easier. But then I constantly found myself double checking this every time I moved, because it always felt like the stuff was going to be falling out, or I would think I felt it fall out and I would reach for it, or I'd turn around and look behind me. And I didn't like having to do that. It was taking my mind off the task at hand. So I went back to this. This was actually the last dump pouch I ever ran on my gear, because it kept items very secure as far as dump pouches go. And then about seven years ago or so, my unit was training with a very experienced and seasoned individual from within the special operations community. And he's like, why do you guys have these dump pouches? And we're like, oh, well, so you can retain your magazines. He's like, you don't need it for mag retention. He's like, if you have an empty mag, for what we're doing too, kind of focus on the CQB, he's like, you're just dropping it if it's empty and then reloading and moving on, like come back for it later. You're doing your magazine exchanges, your TAC reloads, well, then you're indexing those things back in your gear because they still have bullets. Why would you put it in a dump pouch where now they're just clacking around and they're not organized and ready to grab and immediately put into a gun? And then some of us were like, well, we carry all of our spare ammunition in here. You know, we have 1911s. We only have like 30 rounds loaded into magazines on us at one time. So we have a bunch of loose rounds so we can keep jamming mags. Were you going to go into a gunfight with a bunch of loose ammo? Like, no, we would just run these mags. It's like, well, then why are you running a bunch of loose ammo while you're training? Well, right, because we need the ammo. And he grabbed one of the cans, dumped all the ammo out of the boxes into the can, and dropped the can behind us where we were shooting. He's like, jam from the can. And light bulb, like, oh, yeah, we don't need to have it in a dump pouch or in our pocket. Like, we can just have this can of ammunition behind us and jam as we go. And it also changed, you know, how we did all of our range training in general. But he's like, look, while you're out here training with me for these couple weeks, he's like, just take them off. He's like, just get rid of them. When I'm done, you guys go back. He's like, you can put them back on if you want. He's like, for now, just get rid of them. It's like, all right, cool. You know, that's what we'll do. We got rid of them. And again, that was about 7 years ago, and I have not looked back because I realized that I was not using it for anything. I would pick up empty magazines after going through a loadout, and then I would drop them in my dump pouch to walk from the line back to the ammo tables. That's a silly reason to carry a dump pouch. One of my last times in Iraq, I did use the dump pouch to carry a stinger ball grenade. It's a non-lethal grenade, shoots a bunch of little BBs out of it. It's bigger than a frag, so it won't fit in a frag pouch. I don't even know where I got it. Don't remember that. But I remember I carried that thing for a week and a half to 2 weeks, and I carried it in my dump pouch. We were wearing flight suits because Marine Corps hadn't fielded the frog uniform yet, and we couldn't wear our camouflage utility uniform. So I didn't have cargo pockets anyways. And a grenade slapping you in the thighs you're around would not be comfortable. But getting rid of that thing, finally throwing it, was awesome. Because for that week and a half to 2 weeks that I carried in my dump pouch, I was constantly reaching back to make sure it was still there. Every time I got up and I ran to position, the very few times that I actually had to drop into the prone and get back up, I would have to consciously check to make sure it hadn't fallen out when I went into the prone. And that was just a nuisance. And then I never used it for anything else, right? It was, we did side exploitation, didn't need it for that. There was a separate process for that. So I had to look back, right? I don't use dump pouches anymore. I do not promote dump pouches. In fact, it's the opposite. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the 3 things that dump pouches do not do for you, right? They do not keep your items organized. They do not keep them secure. And they do not keep them quiet, okay? So you've got, these 2 basic types of dump pouches. You got kind of the open sack style or the more enclosed box style that has, call them these lips, all right? Feed the beast. So pros and cons, all right, and how they don't really satisfy those 3 things of organized, secure, and quiet is I have this open sack, right? So if I just drop items in here as is, there's nothing to keep them truly in the pouch other than gravity, right? As I run along, and then you change positions, drop in the prone, things come out, right? I'm always seeing guys lose stuff out of their dump pouches when they're changing positions. Another issue can be as you start dropping items in here, maybe your first couple mags fall in an angle, you drop a 3rd mag in and it doesn't sit all the way, and then you don't go in the prone, but you just move a little bit and it falls right out. Okay? So these ones are not great at securing your items whatsoever. Now they do have, these drawstrings, so I can tighten it up and make it more difficult for items to pop out. A lot of the pouches that have this feature will have these drawstrings looped, which is bad because they will inevitably catch on things And I've seen a lot of guys make entry into a room and their point of domination ends up being the door because they are stuck to the doorknob via their dump pouch drawstring. All right. Now these ones are single, right? So they can't loop on anything, but if you have worked in vehicles, helicopters, aircraft, or thick vegetation, then you'll know that loose lines will catch on stuff, right? So it's still not really ideal what I want, but it's better than the loop feature, okay? Something else you want to look for with a dump pouch if you're dead set on them is you want it to roll and stow out of the way in the smallest form factor possible. This is about average, I would say, for most products that are on the market. I think Blue Force Gears stows up a little bit tinier, and I think there might be one or two others out there that are similar to it. The less space it takes up on your gear, the better, because like we're getting into, it's kind of a useless pouch, right? So I really, if I'm gonna be running one, I don't want it to take up a bunch of space on my kit. All right, and that's the upside to a lot of these open sack ones, is they will fold up into a much smaller form factor when you stow them out of the way. All right, a lot of them also have this feature, so I can secure the flap inside, get it out of the way, or I can use it to secure and try and close off that pouch to secure the items that I might be carrying in there. All right. So obviously, depending on the design of the pouch, as far as keeping things secure, that goes up or down with the design, right? But if you're not utilizing those design features, then you're definitely not gonna be able to keep your stuff secure, especially with these. So it can be very easy to index your items into. They will not easily keep your items secure. And definitely not quiet, organized as you run around, change positions, things like that, in and out of vehicles. The stuff's gonna be rattling, it's gonna change its position inside the pouch, and you're gonna be fishing for it whenever you go to try and grab it again, right? With the more secure version that has these feed lips on it, kind of same overall features as the other one. These ones often do not roll and stow as easily. So this one has a tab, right? Rolls up. And then it would hang off the belt like that. It's got the MOLLE to go into a gun belt or something like that. That's how I carried it anyways, in my gun belt in the back. So, you know, a little less in the way and less likely to snag, but not as small of a form factor as the open sack. Now, the nice thing with the lips, right, is anything that goes in there is more than likely going to stay as long as you get it into the pouch itself. The downside is it can be a little more difficult to make sure you get those items in the pouch. I even had the issue a handful of times where I put the mag in and tried to let go of it because it's such a small opening and I've got larger hands, put gloves on them and things like that. That friction actually keeps that item on my hand long enough that as I'm just trying to pull my hand away, it pulls the item out too. All right, so I've dropped magazines a handful of times, indexing them into the dump pouch like that. This one had another pouch, so I carried some D10E, EPW stuff in there, right? And it has the extra MOLLE rows, so I wasn't really losing the real estate on my belt by mounting it on there, which is why I went with that one. But got rid of it, so now it doesn't even matter about the MOLLE real estate because it's not there to take it up. So with both of them, as far as keeping your item secure, it's relative to the design features on the pouch and if you utilize those design features. If you keep these open things open all the time, then definitely not secure. All right, more secure, and then depending on the features, it can be really secure But then obviously the more secure it is, the more difficult it is to access. So what items is it that you're trying to carry in there? And I would hope that you're really not trying to carry any of your fighting load in your dump pouch, right? It's kind of one of the misuses of the dump pouch. So they were designed to help you manage magazines as you roll through a gunfight as their primary function. A secondary function was to help you manage odd items that you may be issued occasionally. The thing about that when it comes to like pyro and munitions and things, again, they're not secure, they're not organized. So you throw some flares or something in this pouch and they're just bouncing around. Now you have to reach and grab them, all right, and try to feel which ones are which, or you have to pull them out and look, or you pull the wrong one, put it back, grab the other one. So it's not secure, or it's not organized, all right? You cannot quickly grab what you need and employ it. And even though something like a pop-up flare is not an immediate life-saving device, I would argue, because I've been on the receiving end, that being able to signal for shifting of fires at the appropriate time is pretty damn important. Because if you don't, you either end up moving into your own supporting fires, or you end up losing momentum because now you're fishing for the right pyro signal to signal for that shift or other tactical control measures. So I still want to be able to access those items quickly. And the dump pouch is not going to keep them organized, right? When we talk about magazines, if you're like every mag that comes out of your gun, you're going to throw in that dump pouch, whether or not it has rounds in it. Now, when you need those rounds, you're going to be fishing through all the magazines to find, those mags that still have some rounds in them. Whereas if you instead index those back into the magazine pouches, now you know where those mags with rounds are. But not in here. And again, the quiet thing should be a no-brainer, right? They don't keep your items quiet. They're going to rattle around. They're going to make excess noise, right? Even if you're in the middle of the gunfight, you don't want to be rattling around because there are moments where you are not immediately in someone's line of sight. But if they hear you coming down the trench with your magazines rattling, they're going to know that you're fucking there, right? So secure, quiet, organized, right? Those are three things that you want with your fighting load, and pretty much everything out there has purpose-built pouches. I get that if you're military or law enforcement, you may run into organizational issues with commands not wanting you to buy certain equipment and run your own equipment with certain things. And you may not want to spend your money, but in a lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle while you are in that profession, you are going to have to spend a little bit of money on your business, on your lifestyle, in order to do it efficiently and correctly, all right? But kind of going back to the dump pouches, right? Talk about the two basic types, all right? Pros and cons to each. As far as where you want to mount them onto your gear. Beltline is better. Beltline is better because it is easier to access. I see, again, my simple is Marines, right? I'm a retired Marine, and I still work on the base, so I still see it all the time. And the Marines, a lot of them will have their dump pouch, usually by unit SOP, attached to their support side of their plate carrier on the cummerbund. Putting it up that high and right there means you gotta crank your shoulder to get into it, unless you don't wear your plate carrier appropriately and it's all loose and saggy and it puts it down your waist on anyways, which then you have other issues that need to be corrected. So the proper place for the dump pouch is going to be on your belt line. And ideally it is closer to center. You don't need it perfectly centered. I prefer to center mine just because it kept the weight centered. If I was going to put up like 300 rounds of loose 45 in it, which again, dumb reason to have a pouch. But for what its intended use is, you want it, so if you're a right-handed shooter, right about your 4 or 5 o'clock, right? Just on the left side of your back, on the belt line. That'll keep it out of the way, and it'll make it easy to access, both to put stuff into it and to retrieve items out of it. There are a lot more of these things coming out now that have webbing, so they can go, basically you mount this and then you can mount your mag pouch. That way it doesn't really take up any real estate. That's, a good idea. But then it hangs over your support side hip, which I'm not always a fan of, because now it starts covering up other things, and like you have cargo pockets, which we'll kind of get into. Or this is a cargo pocket. You already have them on your legs. You don't need a third one. But if you want one, all right, there is a way to run it. But I recommend that you put it just slightly behind you or on your back, not right at right on your side. So as a right-handed shooter, all right, being on your 9 o'clock, all right, covers up some pockets that are still accessible that can be used to hold things. With the dump pouch there, it just kind of gets in the way. All right. Our back pockets we don't really make use of because it's uncomfortable to sit on items in the back pockets. So also I don't think I mentioned it, but I started seeing people like put them on the front of their leg. Like, so it's on their belt, but it sits in front of their thigh. That tells me that you've never climbed anything, you don't run very often, and you don't get in the prone, which are all things that you were going to find yourself doing in an actual gunfight. And they do that because it's on the front, so they can look at it and put the items in. Right? That's not where you want these things. You want them on your sides or on your back, so it's out of the way, belt line, and it should be no farther forward than, if you're a right-handed shooter, you're 9 o'clock. If you're a left-handed shooter, you're 3 o'clock, and then back. All right. I started seeing people mount them on their front. People who mount the dump pouch to the front of their kit are folks who are not in combat arms and never find themselves having to, go prone and things like that. And maybe that's fine for what they do. All right. That is potentially another place to mount it. But again, if you're going to be running a dump pouch right here and taking magazines and putting it right here, well, then I should definitely be indexing partial mags back in my kit, right? Because I'm already doing this motion. Then when you go to put an item into it, the easiest way is to index your own body, right? You know that pouch is generally, let's say it's at my 5 o'clock right here where I've got my hand right now. If I bring my hand to my belt line right there, I feel the pouch and I put it down in the pouch, let the item go, bring my hand out, then I'll know it's in the pouch. What I see a lot of times is people go reaching behind them and they're kind of fishing, trying to use the item itself to find the pouch, and then they think they got it and they drop it, all right, all the way to the ground, completely defeating the purpose, again, of having the dump pouch. So if you're intent on running them, or you have to because of unit SOP, make sure you're actually indexing the pouch with your hand. That way you feel the pouch, put the item in it, and move on. Or use your cargo pocket and don't worry about it. So all the arguments for the dump pouch that I get. Snack pouch. It's not a goddamn snack pouch, all right? I know some people throw that out there as a joke, but if you are carrying this simply because you want to fill it with snacks to go on patrol, all right, you don't need that many damn snacks, all right? It's not your meal sustainment pouch. You've got a ruck, you got an assault pack, and you've got pockets. You should also invest in a nut ruck. Your pockets and your nut ruck, you can carry small things like meal replacement bars, energy bars, emergency ration bars, A lot of little things that you can put in those pockets, like peanut butter and jelly packets from an MRE. You can put those in your pockets, grab them, slam something real quick to kind of keep you going, and you move on. Filling this with a bunch of snacks, now you're definitely not going to be using it for your magazine management or anything else, because you're smashing snacks, all right, and negating the whole reason that the thing was designed for and intended for anyways. I'm using one is the tactical puppy recovery pouch. Yeah, that's funny, all right, makes for, cute little pictures and stuff like that. But again, it's not a smart, legitimate reason to carry the dump pouch, all right? Trash pouch. Sometimes, quite literally, I see it a lot. Again, with the Marines, is they have their dump pouch on, and there's either a full MRE or a used MRE, and it's just a bunch of trash. Like, eat your chow, roll that thing up. I even did a post on that recently on Instagram, like Quadro 326, and put it back in your ruck. Like, put your trash back in your ruck. Don't run around with your fighting load, which is what your plate carry and all that is. It's your fighting load. Trash is not going to help you take life or save life. So don't carry trash, right, on your fighting load. Now, maybe you're a medic, all right? If you're a medic, you may have found in your initial training, or if you've been through TCCC and stuff like that, that if you just open up a pressure bandage or a chest seal, and then you just throw that trash back into the med bag, the next patient you go to open up that med bag, you have an explosion of trash. Now you're trying to dig through it to find your necessary medical items, and then you're scrambling to contain all that trash back in the med bag. You can absolutely stuff that in your cargo pocket, right? It will fit. Or you could put it in a dump pouch, right? That's a legitimate need, all right? But then, do I need that on my kit? Or can I get one of the nice small form factor ones that stow away and put it on my med bag? That way I just shove the trash in and I move on, right? If you're in that position, that's your call to make, all right? So think about that. Somebody was vehemently disagreeing with me, and they said they use their dump pouch to carry vegetation when they're on patrol. So let's talk about that real quick. I have never once on a stalk lane, nor have I ever seen anybody else on a stalk lane carry a dump pouch, let alone to bring vegetation with them as they went along. The crazy thing about moving through the wood line is there's more vegetation. So maybe I throw some veg in my veil or my hood or on the scrim of my helmet as I start my patrol. And then as I move through the terrain, I realize the vegetation is changing and I no longer match my environment. So then I can change the vegetation should I so choose. If I go static for a long period of time, I can use the local flora to, again, veg up my helmet scrim or my cobra hood or whatever kind of veil or net I may be using. And now I match my environment and my background. If I continue to use the vegetation from where I started my patrol, there's not a guarantee I'm going to match my environment through the entire route. I can walk out in my backyard and veg up from the edge of the trees, walk 100 yards in, and I no longer match the background because I have more coniferous trees at the edge of the yard, and then deeper in the woods, they become more deciduous, and the underbrush gets thicker. I don't match anymore. But I can pull from my immediate surroundings. So filling your dump pouch with vegetation to carry it with you on patrol, I think that was just a very emotionally unintelligent argument. For mags, all right, already talked about it, all right, using it for securing your mags. Realize that a lot of you military guys, when you're out there on your squad attack ranges, company attack ranges, you're issued ammunition with the general intent that you come back dry. So people are telling you to go through all of your ammo so you come back dry. I've been there, I've done it. Hey, we have all this ammo, get out there, burn it down, and so you're intentionally running your guns to bolt lock and doing your bolt lock reloads, which is not the way you actually really want to do it. but that's what you're doing. And so you come back with all empty magazines and no bullets, so company gunny and platoon sergeant don't yell at you for not shooting all your ammo because they don't want to do a turn-in. Do your magazine exchanges, all right? Do not intentionally run your gun dry. Do your mag exchanges so whenever you need to be shooting, you can always be shooting because you are topping off your gun. And then index those magazines back into your kit. If you run dry and you recover that magazine before you move on, you can just throw it in your cargo pocket, right, temporarily. And then when you reach the limit of advance, you can pull that magazine out and either it goes into your assault load as you switch it out with a full mag from your assault load. You top it off with ammunition you're carrying in your assault load, or you do put it back into a pouch in your kit, hardest to reach, all right, move all your fuller mags to easier to reach spots. And there are different things that you can do to ensure that you do not accidentally grab, all right, that empty magazine should it still be in your kit during counterattack or follow on or something like that. All right, I'll do a follow on video about ammo management. So you don't need the dump pouch for your ammunition and magazine management. You do not. Whether you use pocket or pouch, it is temporary storage. Right? The stuff does not stay in there indefinitely until your training evolution is complete or you're back behind friendly lines. Ordnance pouches. Kind of alluded to that already. Don't carry loose grenades and shit in the dump pouch, right? I get, again, military guys, especially when you're young, you issued, a grenade launcher and you're given a bunch of grenades for a range and they didn't give you a bandolier or pouches to carry them. So you're kind of stuck with having to carry it in the dump pouch. That does not mean that it is a good spot to carry them, all right? Get purpose-built pouches to carry your munitions because it keeps them secure, organized, and quiet, and will also help prevent things from happening, especially with hand grenades, like pins being removed, all right? Don't carry your munitions inside your dump pouch. It is not an ordnance pouch. There may be odd items that you can fit into a dump pouch. Like maybe you have a few pop-up flares, right? I shove them in here and grab these fucking bungees and try and wrench it down, kind of keep them from moving around. All right, I got to do what I got to do to try and keep them secured, organized, and quiet. Again, use the features on your gear. But there are better methods for carrying all those items to make them more easily accessible, more secure, more quiet, more organized. Sensitive site exploitation, or we'll just go with site exploitation because first off, a lot of you claim SSE don't actually do SSE, all right? That is a specific task. What you're probably doing is tactical site exploitation or just evidence gathering in general. Now, law enforcement guys, I had a few of the fellow cadre of Orion Training Group be like, hey, it's important for me to have that dump pouch because if I disarm a suspect, it's almost always a pistol. And that way I can unload that pistol, I can throw in my dump pouch, and I can keep on rolling. Okay, right? If you have a legitimate tactical need for something, then you have a legitimate tactical need. Right? I'm not going to tell you no. Plus, I'm just a guy on the internet, right? But if you're thinking that you're going to roll through a target and just start grabbing all kinds of crap and throw it in your dump pouch and then go back and, get into the rear and throw all this stuff out of your dump pouch at the feet of some intel analysts and, expect a high five and a stick of gum, it's not going to fly that way. Could there be times where that might be useful? There could be, right? But for the most part, when you were conducting site exploitation, there is a specific process behind it. Generally speaking, you need to document the items that you find, and then you want to bag them, and then why not just put them in a pack, right? You can carry an assault pack. You can even carry an old sleeping compression sack and repurpose it into a lightweight pack. All the items go into that. You cinch it up, cinch all the straps down, pulls it all nice and tight. One strap as a sling or two straps to wear it as a backpack. and now you're off. Instead of carrying it in a ass sack that's flopping around in your kit and you're not keeping these sensitive items of evidence secure. Range gear, right? There's another thing I've had people come at me with, well, I need it for my range gear. You know, I like carrying my staplers and pasties and, you know, markers and all that stuff in my dump pouch. Crazy thing about it though, right, is you don't need that in your dump pouch. Maybe you like it, and if you like it and you're just like heart set, like I just love having a stapler on me at all times, okay, then you run a dump pouch, you have a stapler on you all times. Or you just get a box or a bag and you put all those supplies in that box or bag, and then you can leave it downrange by the targets. Or if you're, you know, got a big range and you got targets all over the place, you don't have a good central location to leave that, then you leave it, you know, by your loading table where your mags and maintenance kit are. And if you need to go rebuild a target or reface a target, then you go grab the items that you need. You go down and you staple and you paste and put up new targets and binder clips and all that good stuff. And then you bring it back and you dump it in that box and you move on. Target repair is not so critical as reloading a gun, applying tourniquets, or anything like that. Right? The things that go on your gun belt should be for taking and saving life. Right? And I get that, you know, maybe like you're a competition shooter or something like that, and I don't do those things. Well, that's fine, right? You're not in the business of taking and saving life. You just like guns, you go out and you shoot, cool. But then you really definitely don't need a dump pouch. This has been a long video, all right? I appreciate everybody sticking around, all right? And my weird eyeball movements as I forget exactly where I'm supposed to be looking to look at the phone as I'm recording. Look, overall, if you are heart set on running a dump pouch, then, you know, run a dump pouch, all right? You don't have to not do it just because I said it. All that I am hoping to do with this video, well, for one, is explain my proclivities, because people keep asking me every time they see a meme or I'm added on some company's advertisement for their dump pouch, like, why? So this is the why. I don't use them and why I don't think that they're necessary. But if you want to, run one, man. Just make sure you understand how to use it, utilize the features of the pouch, all right, so that you can mitigate those three items of secure, quiet, and organized as much as possible. Use them for their intended purpose. And again, if you're just a dude on a range, all right, or you're just a trainer, you're like, well, I want to put my snacks in it. Okay, fine, right? Because I'm not saying you can't. All I said, laid it out with, you know, the things of the arguments that I get and why they're kind of invalid is those aren't legitimate tactical needs. It's temporary storage. So you start throwing mags and stuff in there, it's temporary. Get them out of there as soon as possible. All right, don't leave them in there forever. Same thing goes for the cargo pocket. You don't need them. All right, you have cargo pockets if you're in the military. You can utilize those cargo pockets to perform the functions that you would normally utilize this thing for and move on. Again, if you're just a regular Joe, everyday citizen, and you wear jeans, I wear jeans when I go to the range, especially I'm retired now. And even when I'm training folks, I don't usually wear cargo pants anymore. I still don't find myself needing or wanting a dump pouch because I can still access, I can shove mags into my pants pockets well enough, or I just drop them on the ground if it's empty and I roll on. And I can pick it up when I'm done with the range. If I were going into a situation where I think I'm going to be in a gunfight, then I will wear cargo pants because I'm going to use my cargo pockets to help me retain items and carry certain pocket items. So that is the very long, I know it's a long video. I appreciate anybody who is still sticking around. Again, run the dump pouches if you want. Hopefully this has prompted some thought and you're actually going to analyze your kit and what your uses are for it. I'm sure I'll get plenty of comments about, why I'm wrong. Hey, whatever. But I appreciate everybody who stuck around to this point in the video. All right, you can check me out on Instagram, BlakeWater0326. Also, there's my company, Maneuver Training Solutions, LLC. You can also find me on Instagram, and the website the link to the website will be in the description below this video. You can check me out if you are in the Camp Lejeune area. I offer classes on firearms and some other subjects. And then I've even had people already drive out from as far as Florida and New Jersey. So if you're willing to travel to here, I also work through Orion Training Group. So you can check out Orion Training Group. I will also put a link to their website in the description below. Orion offers classes more widely across the United States in subjects medical, CQB, firearms, night vision, small unit tactics, land nav. And if you don't see something up on the course catalog, you can contact Jerry with the Orion Training Group and try to set up a class. We just need a venue. We can come out and we can get you trained up. All right. So again, thanks. Please like the video. Check me out on Instagram, and also check out Maneuver Training Solutions and Orion Training Group. Stay dangerous.